I have an idea for an app. It's a time tracking app, but I think it will help make the process of tracking your time better. And also, I'm thinking about maybe combining the time tracking aspect with habit creation. I think that'd be pretty interesting. But because this isn't really anything new, these types of things already exist. I think it's just really an improvement over what's out there. I'm going to take you guys along for the entire ride.
All right, so let's do a couple of things. Let's establish like what the idea is. So I mentioned that I had another app that I wanted to build, and it's not the startup that I've been working on. It's this idea that I've had actually I think for quite a while, um, because it's something that really annoys me, and I want it to be better, frankly. So there are a lot of time tracking apps out there. I don't think this is really much of a secret, but my idea or my problem that I have with a lot of these time tracking apps is that you need to manually track your time yourself. So you have to be the one to go in there and hit start and hit stop and then categorize things and stuff like that. And that's fine. I use a time tracking app and I do that all the time. But what I was thinking, and I don't believe this exists, if it does, I'm still going to make this either way. But what I was thinking is it would be really cool if the app could just kind of run in the background on my computer and it could just look at the apps that I use and what I'm doing on those apps and just track my time accordingly. And then at the end it can categorize things, show me reports, whatever, and I don't want to have to do anything. I shouldn't have to like do anything, frankly, in order to track my time. It should be as automated as possible. And so I think that's going to be what the differentiator here is that it's going to be an automated time tracking app, not a manual time tracking app like a lot of them. And I think what we can also do going forward in time, not immediately, but eventually, is also kind of build in like habit tracking features as well, because habit tracking and time management are, in my opinion, they kind of go hand in hand. This is actually going to be pretty straightforward, I think. So basically, what'll happen is that you will um, on app focus. App focus means that like you select an app. So if it's I'm using this app called Miro right now. If I select that, or if I selected VS Code, which is on the other screen, so you can't see that, or if I selected Chrome, which this is the time tracking app that I use personally. Um, so on app focus, whenever you are actively on any given app, then what we will do is start tracking time for that app, uh, and stop tracking time for the previous app. And this, I think, we can just have go in a circle. How do I do this? This. I think we can just have this go pretty much in like an infinite loop. And then what we can do is maybe store everything locally on the phone or on the device. Because if we were to have this go up to say like Firebase, so I'll probably use Firebase for this on the back end if there's going to be any sort of authentication or server environment. I'll probably use Firebase for that because it's really easy to do and I know how to use it. Um, which means that we'll use Firestore, which is their database, and their database Firestore, while I love it and it's great, you get charged by usage, not by instance, which is fine. Except that if we're switching the app that we're tracking time for, every time that you focus on a different app, that means we're going to be sending a lot of requests, both read and mostly write, but both read and write to the database, and they get very expensive. Particularly, write requests are more expensive. I think you get like 50,000 read requests for free per day, and then I think you get I think it's like 20,000 write requests for free per day. That's quite expensive. So what I want to do is maybe store it on device, and then every day maybe we can flush the device and send it up to Firestore. That way it doesn't take up space locally, or we could just save it locally and not worry about Firestore. That'd make it even less expensive to host this. So either way, we can experiment with that. I think it'll be relatively easy to do either way, but that won't really be my main concern right now. It's just an idea, is kind of like how that would work. The first part I know is possible. This is essentially like the screen time on your device, on your Mac or on your iPhone. But the difference is that screen time just kind of shows you what apps we're using. Now we're trying to associate the app that you use with, whether you're being productive or not, or the type of work that you're doing, or how you're spending your time. So we're adding a little bit more context to it. That part, I don't know how to do. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to learn about how to do that in Mac. Hopefully it's possible. The second part is to actually observe like what the computer is doing or what the user is doing within the app. So let's say in the case of VS Code, in the case of VS Code, we know that VS Code is probably working in some way. Like if you're using something like VS Code, you're probably working in some way. But in the case of something like Chrome, like a web browser, different tabs, one tab could be a work thing, another tab could be not a work thing, it could be a leisure thing. But even within that, if you're on YouTube, we can't say that all YouTube is leisure. We have to say that depending on what you're watching, it's leisure or work or education or hobby or whatever. And so that's going to be a little bit harder. No idea how to do that, but I know for sure that I want this to exist, because I feel like as great as my time tracking has been for me, and as strong of a habit as doing it, tracking my time, has become for me. So it's something that I kind of just do automatically now. I know that there are still times where I miss things. I let the tracker run too long, or I say that I'm doing something and then I get sucked into watching YouTube videos. Like, I know this happens. You do your best to make it not happen, but it does, unfortunately. And so I kind of want to try and eliminate that. And then of course we can, like I said, we can add in the habit tracking features later on. Either the Mac operating system will give us access to the screen time, the screen share time, whatever it's called, the screen time thing that it records itself, and we can just tie into that maybe, or we need to be able to actually look at which app is currently being used and then go off of that. I would rather go off of that because I think that gives more power. I just don't know if that's possible. And I guess in that same line of thinking, I don't know if the screen time, if Apple, offers or makes available the screen time thing to connect to Firebase, maybe. It'll probably start to matter if we want to create like an iPhone app and a Mac app. I was going to make this be a Mac app first, but it might become a problem. It might start to matter to be able to have Firebase once you have, if you want to have like an iOS app or something like that. Also, I'm not really going to pay much attention, if any, to the UI, like the UX right now. It's more about, I think, getting things to work functionally, because the value of the app comes from the functionality, not from the aesthetics. So I'm going to focus on whether or not this is technically feasible and how it might be done. And then we can worry about making the perfect app design later. So I did a little bit of digging, not all that much. I actually came up with, I think maybe will work kind of quickly. So Apple has this framework called device activity, and you can build an extension from your app that will basically be able to go and get access to this device activity, which comes along with user application and website activity. Now, having said that, the biggest limitation here, the most noteworthy, the main limitation here is that the way that this works, so when you get this device activity report, it says here, a view that reports the user's application, category, and web domain activity in a privacy preserving way. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what does that mean, preserving? And what that means is that it opens it up. It basically lets your extension for your app run inside of a sandbox. And then this sandbox prevents your extension from making network requests or moving sensitive content outside of the extensions of address space. So I don't know to what extent that will become a problem. Because if I'm wanting to go take this data and then kind of run some calculation on it to figure out what exactly you were doing, if this was time that you spent coding on this startup, this app that I'm building, or if it was time that I spent coding on a freelance client, or if it was time that I spent coding on a different startup that I'm working on, or if it was me watching something on YouTube to learn something, whatever it is, we want a way to be able to take that data and parse it, internalize it, make calculations on it. And I don't know if that's possible here. I also went and looked up if this was doable inside Flutter because I know Flutter. I don't know native iOS development. So I would have to learn that from scratch, which I really would rather not do. Unfortunately, it seems as though this is not something that Flutter can handle. And so I actually might end up needing, most likely will end up needing to do this with the native iOS, native Apple development tools, which is unfortunate, but it's a good excuse to learn something new. So I guess that's cool. Okay, so I found some stuff that could be interesting. Maybe, we'll see. Need to look into it a little bit more because I know that Apple's really big on privacy and stuff, so they might actually impose some limitations that result in me not actually being able to go and make it work this way. Having said that, the managed settings framework and the device activity framework seem like maybe they could be. Never happened before. My computer actually ran out of space, but either way, managed settings and device activity seem like they could potentially be what I need. The only question is going to be, does Apple restrict too much information or what you can do with that information due to privacy reasons? I don't know. But that's going to be where I go first, see if it actually can work. But before I get there, I don't know anything about native iOS or Apple development at all. I don't know why I said iOS. This is going to be a Mac app. I don't know anything about native Apple development using Swift. I use Flutter. I like Flutter. I tried native Apple development stuff like Swift once upon a time, and I didn't like it. But we don't have a choice. So what I have to do first is actually go and learn how to build something with Swift. And for that, I think I'm going to just try and build a to-do list app. That's like the easy starter basic thing. And I'll make videos about it. So what you're going to see coming up is building a very simple to-do list app using native Swift. That way I can learn, and then we can go and do this, which I think will be a lot more complex. So, or actually maybe I should, you know what? Scratch that. We're not going to build a native to-do list. We're not going to build a to-do list app. We're going to build a time tracking app, but we're going to build it the manual way where you enter in each one of your times, the way that I said at the beginning of the video I wanted to avoid doing. But it would be good to have that feature in here anyway. So we're going to go and build it using that approach, and then we'll come back and we'll try and add in the automated stuff so that we can make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more helpful for people. So having said that, I think it makes sense to probably end the video here because the next thing that we're going to do is going in and learning how to build something with Swift. And I feel like that's related, obviously. but also kind of not related at the same time. Even though it's going to be the same app, it's just a totally different shift, like mentally for me. I don't know. It makes more sense to not do it right now. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to cut the video here, and then we'll go and we'll start the next video will be on learning how to do Swift. If you enjoyed this video, or if you want to come along for the journey, subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.